Thick paper, so when I highlight it doesn't bleed through. It's kind of preacher, kind of dorky, but it's got wide margins. You put notes in there. Anyway, it's good. Also, it was Clancy's original due date. She came about a month before that, but that was Clancy's original due date. That was awesome. And so what really just said, boom, this is a great day, was this past December the 2nd on my way home when my car exploded. Like, not really exploded because, but the headlights went out. Anyway, so now I've got the dash ripped off my car, and I'm not a mechanic, and I don't know what I'm doing, and YouTube's helping, but it's getting ugly. Anyway, December the 2nd is a good day. That might tie in later, I don't know. When you leave today, I want us to have one thing in mind. And that is that we ought to be, as Christians, pursuing everyday righteousness. So that's kind of my point today that we're looking at, is everyday righteousness. What does that mean? Kind of, sort of. We're going to look at that. But how do we need to be doing that? Because that's really what our job is anyway, spreading the fame of Christ, which would be living out everyday righteousness. So in order to do that, in order to talk about that, we're going to look at the burial of Jesus today. To catch you up, if you haven't been here, last week we looked at Christ's actual death while he was on the tree. The week before that, David Nance did a phenomenal job of preaching about the actual crucifixion. And then last week we talked about his death on the tree. Today we're looking at the burial. So we're going to look at a couple of Jewish leaders and see how the Lord changed their lives. It's going to be interesting because honestly, they did something that led to them trying to live a life of everyday righteousness. Now, I feel like I've gotten good over the last couple years of not saying anything like about the lights or if something goes bad. But if y'all hear a small jet engine right now, it's okay. It's just the new heaters. And thank God that the YMCA put some new heaters in here. So I hope you're a little bit warmer than normal. Stay out of the break room. It's like 1,200 degrees in there. Matthew 27, we're looking at about, just a few verses. But there's some good stuff in here. There's some good stuff. So y'all, let's get ready. Let's dive in. I'll read the first few verses, then we'll talk about this cat, Joseph. All right, verse 57. Matthew 27, 57. When it was evening, now remember, Christ's body's still on the tree. He's dead at this point, but he's still on the tree. The whole world has turned dark. We talked about that exchange last week. If you missed it, you can find it on YouTube. But we talked about that. The whole place went dark for 3 hours. And there was this transaction, I should say, that took place between Jesus and Father. And that was when he spilled his blood to pay the price for sin. That's our only hope. If that part never happened, if he didn't really die for sin, then all this would be in vain. It goes further. If there wasn't a resurrection, then all of this would be in vain. But he came out of that tomb, and today we're looking at him going in that tomb. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph. He was also a disciple of Jesus. We'll jump back to that part, but he was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud. I think I got that one out there right. A bunch of linens, you know what I'm saying. And laid it in his own new tomb. That is not Jesus' new tomb. Well, it is now, but it was Joseph's tomb that he had made for himself because he was a rich man. In his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. Here's why this is such a big deal. First of all, this is a prophecy that fulfilled, it's Isaiah 53, verse 9. And I think this is cool, y'all. I know that this guy Joseph knew a little bit about the Old Testament. But I don't think that he read Isaiah 53:9 and said, oh, so it's going to be a borrowed tomb of a rich dude, and he's going to notice that the guy that was crucified was actually innocent. I don't think Joseph read it and was like, oh, I've got to do that to fulfill the prophecy. But that's what ended up happening. I'm going to try to make some more sense of that in a little bit, but let me first tell you about this Joseph cat. All right, so he was a member of the Sanhedrin. And if you read, let's see, whose account was it? Mark and Luke say that Nicodemus assisted him in the burial of Christ. So he was a leader in the Sanhedrin too. These are prominent Jewish leaders that were in the Sanhedrin. A little flashback just to help you remember this. You know, I said that there's two trials of Christ. One was Jewish and religious, and it happened illegally, kind of during the night, and it was shady. And then they had to take him to the Romans before Pilate so that then he could be crucified because the Romans had charge of crucifixion. So backtrack on that Jewish one, and here's what you have. You have two members that would have had a vote that went towards should they actually take Jesus and put him on trial with the Romans or not. And they've been kind of secretly disciples. If you look in Mark and Luke's account, it lets us know, they let us know that Joseph was not in agreement to condemn Christ with the other Jewish leaders. So maybe some of them didn't like him anyway because he had already said, hey, no, I'm not cool with that. But nonetheless, I don't know if he was the only one that voted, or maybe I don't know how the vote added up. Or as soon as they got a quorum, they left some of the others out. I don't know. But what ends up happening is that Jesus goes on to the second trial. So he was a rich dude, and he wraps up Jesus. Now, let's just say at that point it's done. Then, when the rumor surfaces that the disciples stole his body, then guess what? That rumor would be here today, and perhaps we would all believe it. I know that sounds crazy, but perhaps we would all believe that because that is a rumor that has circulated. That is a talk that has circulated. So let's look real quick as to why that is the case. Verse 62 says, the next day, that is, after the day of preparation. Preparation was on Friday, getting ready for the Sabbath, which was on Saturday. The chief priest and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, Sir, we remember how this impostor said that while he was still alive, after 3 days I will rise. Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he is risen from the dead. And the last fraud will be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can. So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. See, if that part wouldn't happen, then maybe when somebody said, hey, his body got stolen and this happened, the disciples really did it, they were shady, you knew they would do it eventually, you knew they would do something weird, then maybe we would believe that today. I don't know, maybe we wouldn't, but here's what takes place. One of the most powerful people on the planet at the time, Pilate, reminds these, hey, you've already got a guard of soldiers. Go seal the tomb. So when they went and sealed the tomb, we're not talking about something that would have been just, well, it looks like it's there, and then leave. We're talking about, listen, the last part right there said sealing the tomb and setting a guard. We're talking about the most elite soldiers. Think about the Secret Service that we have today. I don't care who you voted for politically, but Trump came to town and it was awesome. I wanted to see Air Force One fly in. I would have won if it was Biden, but I went out there. It was pretty cool. We really enjoyed it. And so what happened was one plane come in and I was bummed because I was like, where's Air Force One? Literally, the bigger reason I came was for Air Force One. And then we had to wait about 30 minutes and there it was. And I was like, I was so excited because everybody out there was bummed when it didn't happen. But you know what was on that first plane? I later found out from some local officials. That was some snipers. There were some other political figures that, they do security detail. Was there people there before them? Absolutely. But the big dogs were on that one because guess what? Then they flew to Florida. What I'm saying here is you got some elite folks. You got some people that they set a guard, right? And they're guarding a very important person. They know what they're doing. And it's meticulous. And it's thought out. And it's strategic. It's not something that was just like, So that's what we're dealing with when Jesus Christ's tomb was sealed. Don't read over this. I think this is crazy important because that lie that some believe can't exist when you realize how important this is. This is more important than if you're Simply Orange seal. Y'all know what I'm talking about, the green sticker. If it's broken, you don't buy that one. And even if you're a little risky, it's the last one. You take it off, and then if that inside seal's broken, you don't buy that. You know better. They sealed the tomb. You got to do a little homework to figure out exactly what that entails. And I'm not going to go into all the detail because I didn't do real good homework. I'm just joking. I did a couple years ago. But my memory's not fresh on it. But they sealed the tomb similar to that orange juice. It wasn't a big old green sticker, but there was a seal to where if that seal would have been broken, then everyone would know. It wasn't enough just to have these elite soldiers there, because what if they had a weak moment and turned into a human and lied about it? It was sealed. That jet I mentioned a while ago just took off. Anyway, so it was sealed. And then they put these elite soldiers there. This is a big deal. Next week we'll be looking at the resurrection. But today I got to thinking about some of this, like it's kind of a weird few verses to look at because it just kind of leaves you hanging, you know what I mean? But we are going through a big book. But I think it's so fundamentally important to know that this thing was sealed by the most elite soldiers, by the leaders of those most elite soldiers who commanded this thing to be sealed. Pilate spoke it. He didn't go execute it, but his leaders would have been excellent at their job. And this bad boy was sealed. Maybe I'll surprise you next week and have a few of those details for you. But this thing was sealed. I need to emphasize that this tomb was sealed because there's going to be a lie that we'll look at that is told. And they say, oh man, hey, his disciples come got his body. And there's a few guys that lie about it. And we'll look at that over the next couple of weeks. Don't come on the 27th. We won't be here. You get your t-shirt on the 20th. But we'll look at this over the next couple of weeks. But what's crazy to me today, and I don't know what kind of you heard as I read through some of that, but as big of the deal as the seal is, the thing that I really kind of rocked me was Joseph. And Nicodemus was with him, according to the other Gospels, but I don't know how long he was with him and all this, but it says that Joseph goes to Pilate. Now, Pilate knew who Joseph was. Now, y'all remember, when they brought Pilate in, they're doing the trial, he washes his hands because he's like, oh, I can't have nothing to do with this guy because he didn't perceive any sin. He didn't perceive anything that was criminal. Remember, Pilate? He knew that Jesus was innocent. But he also was a political sleazeball, but kind of like a political, quote, genius, if you will. He didn't want those leaders to turn on him. Y'all know what I mean? And so he just tried to keep the peace. So he just kind of washed his hands like, well, you deal with it. But see, this is what's crazy is Joseph would have been one of those Jewish leaders, prominent Jewish leader, along with Nicodemus. And so all of a sudden, Joseph goes and asks Pilate. Keep in mind that Pilate was in a position to where he felt so bad about what was going on, he had to wash his hands. He felt bad about it. That's why he tried to remove himself. Even though he couldn't remove himself, he was still there. So all of a sudden, Joseph goes to him. I wonder how mad this very important, prominent leader named Pilate was when Joseph comes to him. Because remember, Joseph was perceived as certainly one of those that put Pilate in that position in the first place, to where he had to make a decision, where he had to wash his hands, where he felt bad, whatever. I wonder if Pilate got a little bit angry with him. See, Joseph took a step. He took a step. And I don't think he looked in the Old Testament and said, what's Isaiah 53, 9 say? Oh, there it is. Let me be that guy. I don't think he took that step. I think he just saw something that was a righteous thing to do, and he did it. I think when we take everyday righteous steps, we begin to leave a legacy. See, what I'm saying is, like this one thing that he did, I don't know that he knew it would be recorded right here. I don't know that he knew, oh, I've got to be that guy, because it didn't prophesy his name being Joseph in Isaiah 53. I guess what I'm trying to say is he took an everyday step. Something was presented in front of him, and it was the right thing to do, and he chose to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. Maybe it wasn't wrong if nobody else thought to bury Jesus, but he did think of it, and he already had a tomb. So why not jump up, volunteer, and use his pull, if you will, to be able to stand in front of Pilate in the first place? Because an old commoner might not have been able to go straight to him. It was on Friday evening, and the Sabbath was coming, which means you better get your work done before the Sabbath comes, or you're not a good follower. So they tried to scramble around and do that. Nicodemus goes with him and helps him. What's interesting is to think about this. After the crucifixion of Jesus, the men that handled his body were full of compassion and kindness and love, because they were just doing the right thing. Isn't that good? That it was the soldiers didn't touch him after that. The men, they got him. Like, that's pretty cool to think about. Maybe there's nothing there. I'm just saying it's kind of neat to think about. It's also important to point out why these two buried him in the first place. Where's his disciples? Where's his 12? Well, Judas was gone by this time, but he was replaced with Matthias. So where they at? Well, they scattered. They feared for their lives. They got scared. They panicked. Whatever the case may be, they get scared for a little while. Now, give them the benefit of the doubt, because the Holy Spirit was not living in them yet. And so, we got to be a little bit patient with them. And later on, they were reminded of these things. And so they come on the scene, and they become, the disciples they're supposed to be, and they do some pretty cool stuff, and that's why we're talking about Jesus today. But in this moment, they get scared, they run, they hide. But it is interesting who was there. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting opposite the tomb. They watched him the whole time while he was on the tree, but the 12 left. Think about that. You women have a special place in the Lord's heart, in my mind, but that's just me. See, this is an interesting thing to think about, that these guys just did a righteous act. Adam, you're going on and on about this, I know. I got a friend named Tim, and not the Tim that taught me how to do squats properly this morning, but a different Tim. There's a Tim that long time ago, he's a good bit older than me, he had the Lord kind of tugging on a little bit about going into ministry. And so all of a sudden this guy says yes, as a young man, he says yes to going into ministry. And I don't remember all of his detail about school, but I do remember this. One of his seminary professors was named Dr. Parker. And I also had Dr. Parker. He was my friend Tim's favorite professor, and he was certainly my favorite professor too. we had a small preaching class, and Dr. Parker, he said, he's in his 80s at this time. He said, men, y'all forgive me if I fall asleep when it's your day to preach. And I told him very bluntly, you will not fall asleep when I preach. He did. My buddies were in small classroom, and I didn't know what to do, so I just quit preaching and talked to my friends till he woke up. The weirdest thing. That was a side note. But here's my point. So my friend Tim, he goes to a Baptist seminary, and he actually graduates a lot different than me. But that was years and years and years ago. And so he goes through, and then he works at a church. And one day he was a little short on money, and one of his buddies asked him to come preach somewhere, and they paid him pretty heftily, and that was pretty awesome because they helped a guy who was in need. And there's tons of stories that go around this particular Tim. And some of you know my friend Tim, and you've already thinking about what he's done in your life and how he's influenced you over the years. And my friend Tim was at one church in Lindale, Georgia for 25 years. Me and Crystal were there almost 4 years, where I was an intern and this and that, and they sent me to school for a semester or two, and that was pretty awesome, and that's where I surrendered to ministry. But a few weeks before I stood in front of the church and said, hey, I'm going into ministry. And people look at you like you're crazy. Anyway, try it one day, some of you. But a few weeks before that was a date, December the 2nd. We're sitting in the church, and it's a good service. I mean, it was awesome. I don't even remember what Tim said, but it was good. He's preaching grace. He's preaching grace. He's preaching grace. He's preaching grace, which is something that Crystal knew and heard, but had never fully experienced. I felt like I married a Christian, and Crystal felt like she was a Christian when we got married, but she went through the motions. You know what I mean? Maybe you can relate. She knew all the Sunday school answers, it seemed like, but not understanding fully to the depths what some of us have experienced, and that is the grace that saves us. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and 9, you get saved through grace through faith. Nothing and nothing that we do saves us. Nothing. And there's no more pure way to say it. Absolutely nothing. And you trust that Jesus saves. And He starts a work in your heart. And that's what happened on December the 2nd. Shortly after that, Crystal got baptized. It was awesome. And then I remembered, after I become a believer at 13, I didn't get baptized. We're still about 2 weeks before I'm going to stand in front of that church and say, hey, I'm called to ministry. 2 weeks away from that. And I called my friend Tim on a Saturday night, and I said, Tim, listen, bro, I got to get baptized. He said, what? He'd been meeting with me for about a year, once a week. He said, huh? Explain. He actually said, huh? Explain this to me. And I said, listen, man, when I was 7, dude, I don't remember it. I don't remember that. And I got wet, I remember, but it's just not sitting well with me when I was 12 or 13. And I feel like I really got saved when I was 12 or 13. And I didn't get baptized after that. He said, you're right, you need to get baptized. So he baptized me the next morning. And I knew while I was getting baptized in 2 weeks, everybody didn't know it, but in 2 weeks I'm going to stand in front of the church and say, I'm called to ministry. You want to talk about the enemy trying to get in your head and really mess with your everyday righteousness, trying to take a next step of faith, trying to do the next right thing. You want to talk about the enemy getting in your head. I can't do that now. I just got to act like I've been baptized after I become a believer. But that wouldn't suffice with me because it wasn't right and didn't line up with Scripture. That baptism did not save me. But I can imagine. I couldn't have then imagined the things the Lord would do in our lives after that. See, a believer will get baptized, and that's not a baptism sermon, but that's what happened with me. My whole point with that was on December the 2nd. Crystal got saved. What an important day to me. What a precious day to me. See, listen, y'all. This is what I'm trying to get at. I could have did it a little better about breaking up the text so it would have fit a good sermon better, but I didn't. But I felt like I did. Because see, here's what's really going on. We wouldn't be talking about Easter right here at Christmas. Let me say that backwards. Christmas happened so that Easter could. This burial happened so that the resurrection could. And that stone was sealed. This is so important for our faith to know how securely sealed that joker was. And I'll probably tell you a little more next week. It's so important. It's as important as us knowing that this child was born of a virgin. Like, that is so important. A virgin birth. It's interesting to note that some other religions don't even deny the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. I know. Wow. You see, when Mary became pregnant, Joseph didn't believe her at first. They were engaged, but the engagements were so like rock solid that you might as well count them as married, almost. And so it says that he betrothed her and was going to kind of make it kind of quiet, the separation, to not shame her too much. And then an angel come to him and said, "No, bro." Probably didn't say bro. "Well, you got this wrong. She's telling you the truth." And over time, the truth was obviously told, and we're telling it today. But what's crazy is that when this opportunity comes to Mary, she knew ahead of time because of an angel of the Lord, and here she is, and she said yes. Think about how precious Mary had to be to even have this opportunity. She didn't earn it, but I still think she was precious. But an everyday step came up right in front of her. The next right thing came up right in front of her. And she just took an everyday step. See, when we take everyday steps of faith, there's no telling what might be the result. You see what I mean? I don't think Joseph, even though he knew the Old Testament, he was a Jewish leader. I don't think Joseph searched through the scripture real quick and said, "Oh, where can we put him?" and figured out that he was one of the ones going to be within this particular prophecy. I really don't. I think Joseph did the next right thing that was right in front of him. Hey, his disciples scattered. "Nicodemus, you come help me, dude?" "Yeah, I'll help you." I think he just had this tremendous opportunity, not realizing that thousands of years later, I would be on this stage talking about him. But he had this tremendous opportunity to take an everyday step, to do some everyday righteousness. And as a result, look at his legacy. We've got this opportunity, church. You've got this opportunity tomorrow morning before you even go to work. You've got the opportunity to do just the next righteous thing, which is to not get an attitude with your family before you go. Some of you right now are acting like you didn't gripe at each other on the way up here. I just saw some heads. I ain't gonna look in that direction. Just kidding, it was that one. Just kidding, I'm not telling on anybody. I'm not a mechanic. I was in my car yesterday. I literally, like, the steering wheel, y'all, is like down. I didn't even know the cars looked like that under the dash. The airbag looks pretty cool looking, but I'm so scared of it. But I'm out there working on it, and Crystal's encouraging me in her own unique way. And I'm in that car, and I'm in the zone, and I've already told Mabry, she says, "Hey, Daddy, can I listen to some music on your phone while I do some acrobatics?" And I'm like, "Leave me alone!" I mean, I'm stressed to the max because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm looking, and then I'm looking, and I'm like, well, what do I do next? And I'm taking one step at a time as I watch this YouTube video to rip my whole car apart, apparently. And Crystal comes out, as precious as she is, and she says, biggest, prettiest smile you ever seen. Didn't say a word. And my dumb self says, "Crystal, I ain't trying to be rude or nothing, but this is stressful. As soon as I said it, I look up, and she just turned around and went back in the house. You wives are precious. Mine's more precious than you, but I should feel that way. That kind of sounded mean. Y'all know what I mean. And I go in the house, and Clancy was asleep, but Mabry was awake, and so I just embraced her and apologized. And at first, she was a little tense on the hug, but she softened up and had her hands all over me after that, I think. But she accepted my apology as my whole point. I didn't do real good on my next step. And I think I know why. Because yesterday morning I was stressed out and I had all kind of things going on, you know what I'm saying? And listen, we need to be doing the next righteous thing. But it's up to us to make sure that we take this righteousness and put it in. Right? Now listen, don't be mistaken. If you ever see Adam Colston do something righteous, it's never me. It's never you as a Christian. It's never you, because we have this flesh. It is always Christ living through us. Now that'll preach. It is Christ's righteousness in us, not us. It is Jesus who is perfect, not us. It is His righteousness we depend on. And the way we get the knowledge of His righteousness is, you guessed it, this book. Yesterday morning I wasn't in the Word. Oh, our preacher didn't read the Bible. Yesterday morning, I read it all the time. How dare him? And you just lied to yourself. I got a pretty good track record, I ain't gonna lie to you, but yesterday morning I wouldn't. And what did I do? I got an attitude with my wife when I shouldn't have. Sinner. It is fundamentally important for us to pour that word into our lives so that when something comes out, it is filled with righteousness. I got a few more on the list. Restaurants. If you go to eat on Sundays, had a conversation with Katie this morning, and she talked about she used to work at a restaurant on Sundays, and she said it was horrible the way Christians acted. Don't let that be us. Y'all do what one of my heroes, Tim, always told First Baptist Lindale. Tip big, especially on a Sunday. Be generous, be thankful, and be kind. It's Christmas. This is when everybody thinks, he don't even know me. I tip huge all the time. And we just lied to ourselves. Some of us get mad about toaster strudels. You go in there to get another one, and Mabry took 6 things of icing and used it on 2 of them. There's 4 left, no icing. Now I got to open the apple ones to get the icing to put on the strawberry one. I made all that up. I'm not speaking from experience. Let's be gracious to each other, because at the end of the day, if we're going to live out an everyday righteousness, let's just let that be one of our banners. Let's just try to live out everyday righteousness. It's good. That's what we need to be trying to do. I should have been done by now, but I'm not. Let me show you one more Bible verse. I was having a time. I hope I remember what verse this is, y'all. Proverbs 18. No. The book of Psalms. Good night, that book's got a bunch of chapters. Book of Psalms. Oh, what was it? Chapter 19, verse 14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. What a banner we ought to live by. Listen again. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. That's good. I was reading it at the barbershop on December the 2nd. And as soon as I hit that verse, the Lord said, it's December 2nd, dummy. It's Crystal's spiritual birthday. And I called her immediately. It was before I opened. I have my moments at the barbershop. But see, listen, what was going on is that I was having a conversation with Jesus. You remember when you have a conversation with your wife, you remember when you have a conversation with your husband or your fiance or whoever it may be, and you can't remember something, and you didn't even know before that conversation that was the thing they was going to bring up and say, oh yeah, I remember that. That's what happened to me because of this book right here. Let's be righteous because Christ is righteous in us. Please bury your face in this book and leave it there for all of eternity. Oh, that's good. Bow your heads with me. God, I love you, and I'm thankful that you have reminded me of your goodness. I'm thankful that you have reminded me of your strong arm, God. I'm thankful that you are our rock. You are our Redeemer, Lord, and I'm thankful for that. So I just pray right now, God, that these little shirts that we'll give out, God, that just goes further than we realize. Big deal, it's a t-shirt, but maybe it goes further than we realize somehow, because you take those words, Happy Birthday Jesus, and let somebody else see them somewhere. Something like that, whatever you want to do. Father, I believe that tomb was sealed so insanely secure that nothing could have penetrated it except you. And you did. And you rolled that big old rock out of the way. And I'm so glad. I'm so thankful, God. I'm so thankful that Jesus did exactly what you said you would do, Jesus. And you came out of that tomb. That's good. That is good. Thank you for that. So during this Christmas season, remind us to be your hands and feet. Remind us that you're in control. Give us a peace and a patience. And please, God, if there's an individual in the room or listening online or wherever that doesn't know you as Lord and Savior, would you please give them your righteousness, saving their lives because of the works of Jesus and not because of the works of me. You're perfect. And I ask that you get us all to call on your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.